Hey, um, so 2 days ago I was at a networking event, and anyway, there's this guy there. He'd set up a couple companies and asked him for advice that he'd give to a new entrepreneur. What he said was you need to take a lot of risks, and the reason why is most startups fail within their first couple of years anyway, and that means you therefore have a choice between being risky and succeeding or failing, or you can be more cautious and you can either fail or do okay. And compared like that, it's a pretty obvious choice really. So I decided I'd test this out a bit. In the hawk-dove game, you have a population of birds, and the doves in this population, they'll be quite cautious. Every now and then they'll engage in a mating ritual, and when they do, they'll get a slight bonus. They'll maybe look a bit brave, a bit tough, and that kind of stuff. When a hawk, however, comes in, it'll be very aggressive and it'll show off all its skills and do a really good job of it. When it fights a hawk, it'll get 50 points and the dove will just run away. Sorry, when it fights a dove. When it fights a hawk, however, they'll both be really aggressive here, and they'll actually gain a pretty big loss in kind of status because they'll be injured, they'll get wounded, and all of the rest of it. What you would expect is for in a population of doves, the hawks will come in, and with their bigger advantage, they'll start to take over a little bit. But as the hawks start to encounter more hawks and become injured, they'll give an advantage to the doves. Oh, and by test, I'll of course make a simulation. Okay, so what makes this different from the normal hawk-dove game is I take the most successful birds here, I put them in a pool, and from there, each day, I select one, and that's the one that gets to breed. And what I can do is I can change whether that pool contains half of the birds, the top 10%, the top 1%, the top 1000. So, anyway, if we run it with 1,000 birds, we take the top half, and they're the ones that get to breed, and run it for 6,000 days and see what happens. We should see, as predicted, we get kind of stable ratio of hawks to doves eventually. And that looks to me about just over 500 hawks to just under 500 doves. And as you can see, we have the average health here. Goes up and then it goes down. It's just kind of reflects how much the average bird is scoring in terms of points and all the rest of it. When a dove runs away, it gets 0. So, let's see what happens if we change it so that only 1/10 of the birds is eligible to have this breeding opportunity to be rewarded. So, what we notice is the amount of hawks increases a lot faster. It took about 5,000 days to reach a stable ratio with the half of them, but now about 1,000 days. It's amazing. And we also see that the amount of hawks we get is at a pretty large ratio. It's definitely above 600 for quite a lot of the time here. And what happens if we push it further? What happens if we say, instead of at N% being eligible to breed, we say 1% are eligible to breed? What happens here? Well, now we can see that the ratio of hawks to doves is crazy. It's pretty much all hawks and hardly any doves. And in fact, the average health is negative. And consider that when a dove retreats from a hawk, it's actually scoring 0 points. What this means is that every single dove, every single one, is doing better than the average bird population as a whole, and that despite the fact they're doing better than the average, they're still dramatically outnumbered and at a massive disadvantage than the risky hawks. And the reason why is the risky strategy, there's greater scattering of kind of average health values they can have, and thus with this scattering you're much more likely to fall into the upper echelons, the at kind of 1% exclusive thing where they'll get the reward. And this is exactly what we're seeing in the current economic climate. There might be 1,000 startups in London at the moment, thereabouts, but only 1% of them will be the next Facebook or the next Snapchat within the next couple of years. Most of them will fail. They might run out of money in a few years' time or a few months, something like this. And so, that's why it pays to have a risky strategy when you're having a startup. We've not seen anything like this before. It's a totally new phenomenon because it's never been possible for a startup to succeed so well. And that concludes my vlog. So, goodbye. Hope you learned something.